Welcome to Together for Justice, a tribal and state legal advocacy tool. This resource from the Native Alliance Against Violence, the Seminole Nation Domestic Violence Program, and the Oklahoma Access to Justice Foundation was created to equip advocates and survivors with plain language legal information and tools to navigate Oklahoma's complicated court landscape. In this first video, we'll explore domestic violence as a legal concept. At its core, domestic violence is about power and control, but inside the justice system, that phrase carries specific legal meanings. Survivors may have protections under both criminal and civil law, and those protections can look different in state court and tribal court. For advocates and survivors, understanding these pathways is essential. When we know where protections come from and how they work together, we're better equipped to navigate towards safety, stability, and justice. Working and living in Oklahoma, where the legacy of Indian removal still shapes today's legal and political realities, means supporting survivors through a uniquely complex criminal and civil legal landscape. Within Oklahoma's borders, there are 77 state district courts and 39 tribal nations operating 28 tribal courts and 3 CFR courts. Each of these is a legitimate court of authority, as long as the court hearing the case has jurisdiction. The issue of jurisdiction may be a phrase we hear frequently, but let's put the term plainly. When you hear lawyers and judges talk about jurisdiction, they are referring to a court's legal power to hear and decide a case. It answers two big questions. What kinds of cases can this court decide? And where does this court's authority apply? Before any court, tribal, state, or federal, can hear a civil case, two things must be true. The court must have the power to decide the kind of case known as the issue or problem, called subject matter jurisdiction, meaning there must be a law, code, or statute that says something is a problem and lists the legal solution or remedy available. For example, the state of Oklahoma says there are several reasons why one might need a divorce, names the problem, and lists the legal remedies available to people who are divorcing, things like property division, last name change, and child custody, so they have subject matter jurisdiction over divorces. But courts must also have authority over the people involved, called personal jurisdiction. Keeping with the divorce example, the state of Oklahoma determines personal jurisdiction by asking, have you lived in Oklahoma at least 6 months? Oklahoma courts have personal jurisdiction. Have you resided in your county at least 30 days? Your specific county district court has personal jurisdiction. When a court has authority over both the legal issue and the people involved, it has jurisdiction. And with that power, it can decide civil matters like divorce, guardianship, custody, child support, paternity, name changes, eviction, and more. But jurisdiction is only part of the picture. Each justice system, tribal, state, or federal, may define domestic violence differently. What qualifies as domestic violence in one court may not look exactly the same in another, and those definitions can change depending on the type of case. Are we talking about a criminal case or a civil case? That distinction matters. In a criminal case, the government brings the action. The goal is accountability for breaking the law. The prosecutor represents the state or the tribe, not the survivor. And the possible outcomes can include jail time, probation, fines, or other penalties. For survivors, rights in criminal cases may include being told about hearings, having the chance to be present and heard at certain stages, protection from intimidation or retaliation, and writing a victim impact statement to express how the violence has changed their lives. A civil case happens when a person asks the court for an individual protection or remedy, but doesn't include possibility of jail. Civil cases connected to domestic violence might involve filing for a protective order, filing for divorce or custody, or seeking child support or spousal support. Survivors in Oklahoma may also have rights in less obvious legal areas, such as housing, where Oklahoma landlord-tenant laws and some tribal codes have additional protections and remedies available to tenants experiencing domestic violence. Employment. Survivors may have workplace protections, like time off for court or recovery, and confidentiality. Programs like Oklahoma's Address Confidentiality Program or similar tribal protections can keep a survivor's address out of public records. As you can see, definitions matter. You can look up how domestic violence is defined in different systems. Here's where to start. For Oklahoma state laws, visit oscn.net or Law for All. For tribal law definitions, visit the individual tribe's official website and look for their tribal code, or many are available online at Tribal Court Clearinghouse. For federal law definitions, you can search the Violence Against Women Act or visit the Office on Violence Against Women. Key takeaway: different remedies may be available depending on the jurisdiction and the type of case. When in doubt, ask. Domestic violence advocates may be available to help survivors understand information and support them as they move through these systems. Thank you for joining us for Together for Justice for this quick introduction to domestic violence as a legal concept. Please join us for additional videos in this series. This resource is for education and legal information purposes only and is not legal advice. Laws and remedies may vary between state and tribal courts. Advocates and survivors should consult with attorneys for case-specific guidance.